Hello and welcome back to the Public Eye Business Podcast, brought to you by Granite Exchange. I'm your host, as always, Sarah Travers, and throughout this series I'll be speaking with local entrepreneurs and business owners to learn more about how their companies have come to be, to gain insight into their growth and find out, crucially, how they continue to innovate. So wherever you get your podcasts from, remember to keep an eye out for all new episodes and subscribe to stay up to date. Well, today in the podcast studio, I'm delighted to be joined by Richard Buckley, editor and publisher of the Business Eye magazine. Richard, you're very welcome to the podcast.
It's great to be here, Sarah. Great to be here.
Well, before we begin, I'm going to give a little bit of background to you, Richard, and your business. So Richard, by trade, is a journalist who has worked for Morton newspapers, Belfast Telegraph newspapers and Greer publications during his career. And alongside his wife and business partner, Brenda, he helped establish Business Eye in 1999. And since then, it has grown in stature to become the leading business magazine serving the Northern Ireland marketplace. Aimed at readers in senior management positions across the spectrum of business in Northern Ireland, Ireland and further afield, Business Eye has gained an enviable reputation for its quality, its style and its content. The magazine is written and produced to appeal to the widest possible business audience, from owners, managers of small businesses to large organisations and indeed the public sector. So Richard is the former Irish Magazine Editor of the Year and Northern Ireland Business Journalist of the Year. So Richard, honestly, great introduction there. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio. I've known you for some time now, but congratulations on all the accolades and having such a wonderful career and business to date. But I always like to go back a bit and find out a bit more about the man, even the boy. So tell us how it all started with you. Where are you from?
Well, I'm from East Belfast, born and bred in East Belfast. My father ran a hardware shop on the Belmont Road, and it's one of those things that I still meet people, older people who'll remember the shop and ask me about why I didn't go into it. And funny enough, my father would have been quite keen, I think, that I'd done that, but I think it was a hardware shop. It was overtaken by the big B&Qs and so on back in the day. So he ended up drifting off and playing golf for most of the rest of his life. So
and did you spend any time in the shop?
Well, bits and pieces. Used to go in and do, but I don't think I was an awful lot of use. I think maybe it became clear to him that maybe I wasn't his natural successor. So journalism is something I wanted to do from a very early age. I went to Campbell College in Belfast, and really I used to go to football matches and write up reports and loved a bit of creative writing, plus writing about news and so on, just on a very amateur level. So it was always the thing for me. What's hard to believe now is I've done 40 years, and just over 40 years.
It flies
and there are
by.
a few others around Belfast who are a bit the same, and it's a long time when you look back. But I think I wouldn't say I've enjoyed every minute. That's probably an exaggeration, but I've certainly enjoyed my career. I really have done, and no plans to retire at the moment.
Well, I think the thing about journalism, and I share that, vocation, I suppose it is a bit of a calling, really. You love people, you love your stories, but also it gives you opportunities, doesn't it? And it opens doors to situations and experiences that
Absolutely.
You wouldn't get anywhere else.
Oh, very much so. It's a brilliant thing to do, and I wouldn't dissuade anyone from doing it. I've got two sons, by the way, two older sons, neither of whom are heading in this direction. So it's a bit like my father and me all over again. They're going in totally different directions, scientific directions, which would not have been my thing.
But journalism, do you think it's changed from when you were starting out completely?
Yeah, but I suppose everyone says this about whatever they do, but yes, I mean, journalism really has. The big change, of course, being the move away from print towards digital, and it's probably something we'll talk about as we get into this chat today. So yes, of course, it's changed. It's the basic nature, whether it's digital, print, broadcast, probably hasn't changed so much. It's still the same job. It's still about talking to people. It's still about doing what you're doing, interviewing people, and it's still about getting the news, the sport, whatever out there.
And how did you actually formalise that trade then? What was the first job, or how did you train?
I trained, I left school at A-levels, didn't go to university, which members of my family and my wife's family keep reminding me. And then I went straight into the College of Business Studies back in those days. It's now, the Maldron Hotel in the middle of Belfast, and did the 1-year NCTJ course, which quite a number of people did back in the day. You know, people like Eamon Holmes.
Absolutely, that was what you did. I mean, you didn't go to university to
no,
study
you didn't.
journalism.
And you went there and you did shorthand, you did typing, you did a little bit of law, which has always stood me in good stead. All those things. You did a bit of government, public administration, it was called. And you learned, you know, we had a lady called Joan Fitzpatrick, who was our tutor back in those days, an old school journalist, and she just drummed the whole thing into us, and it's stuff that stayed with me ever since. It really has, you know.
So at that time, I would imagine, you know, it was a pretty difficult time in Northern Ireland, and the Troubles were dominating. Is that where you found yourself writing about?
Yeah, I mean, we were in the city centre then, and back in those days, you know, there were bombs going off, particularly on Fridays. Fridays was always a bomb day. It was a strange thing. Gosh. And you were in, you were out. You know, you were evacuated. So yeah, you were surrounded by this. You know, I remember, you know, back then, yes, you were tempted. We had to do projects. We had to do articles, and largely everyone wrote about the Troubles. I remember, though, being drawn to probably the only business story around back in those days, and that was DeLorean. And DeLorean and those was just setting up in those. And back in those days, that was incredibly exciting because no one showed any interest in Northern Ireland whatsoever. And suddenly with this glamorous American coming in and investing in a factory producing sports cars, and it was unbelievable. So that was the thing. I remember doing my project stories, my thing all around that.
So what year
so
would
maybe there was an early interest in business.
I'd say that's exactly what it was. And what year would that have been?
78, 79.
And did you get an interview?
No. God, we had to just deal with different people on the ground. There were some Americans that he'd sent over, and there's a couple of us working in this, and we were only students. We couldn't any interviews that were going to the BBC, or they were going to UTV, they were going to the Telegraph. We'd no chance. But we still wrote about it, and we talked to as many people as we could, on union representatives. We talked to loads of different people to see what they could tell us about the plant and what the plans were, you know.
Hugely exciting.
Great.
So where was the first job?
My first job, Morton Newspapers, and I started on Farm Week, which for a guy who was brought up in suburban East Belfast, it was interesting.
Yes, hadn't seen many cows.
I'd seen them, out of a car window. But so that was it. But actually, it was a great training. Really, but I had a great editor called Hal Crowe, who lived up until a couple of years ago, and again, old school guy, smoked his pipe and edited his copy at the desk, and really good grounding right the way through. And just the lack of knowledge in the subject matter was less of a problem than you might imagine. Sometimes it was, but I asked questions, you know, and you had to just ask and say, what is this? How do I do this?
Well, that's what you did. You learned from those people, and if you could stay on their right side, because newsrooms at that time, they were pretty scary places. I remember my first sort of experience. You know, people were everything moved at a fast pace. And it was tough. It was sink or swim, and tempers were frayed at times.
That's especially in the times when you were working there. A bit less so in Farm Week. We were a bit more relaxed. There's a bit more pipe smoking going on, and
that was nice.
And we were sent out to agricultural shows and these kind of markings. So it was perhaps a little bit less frenetic than it would have been on a mainstream news desk. Yeah.
Okay, so you progressed, and as I said in the introduction, Morton Newspapers, followed by Belfast Telegraph newspapers and Greer Publications. But what made you want to start your own business?
I suppose I'd worked for a long time in journalism. I became editor of Ulster Business. Now our rival publication at Business Eye, so that's an interesting one. And became group editor, in fact, of the Greer Publication stable, which was Ulster Grocer and License and Catering News, Specify. And it was at that stage that I met my now wife, Brenda, who came in as advertising manager. So she was selling the advertising, doing the commercial stuff. I was looking after the content, which is kind of what we still do, but we'll move on to that perhaps. Yeah. And we decided at one stage that we were going to go into PR. As a diversion. It's one of those things, as you probably well know, that a lot of journalists do. Yeah. They move into PR and associated marketing fields. wasn't really my thing, Sarah. You know, I did it for a couple of years.
So you gave it a go.
Give it a go, but I didn't really feel all that comfortable with it. I found it a bit difficult trying to, probably shouldn't say this, but trying to justify the bills that we were sending out, let's say, you know. And,
wee bit Emperor's New Clothes at
a
times.
bit, it's just difficult. Yeah, I found it really difficult. After a while, it's quite like that at the start. So then we started to plan, Brenda and myself, and the obvious thing for us to do was to get back to our roots. Brenda had grown up in newspapers, doing advertising for newsletter and other publications. I had gone through the route that you've described. So it was a natural thing for us to think about doing our own thing, and our own thing had to be, we thought, a magazine.
So but alongside that came the, oh my goodness, we're going to have to go out on our own, and we now have to be the competition to the current boss. So how difficult was that?
It was difficult. It was a big jump, but we talked about it. We talked to people. We talked to a lot of different business people who said, yes, we'll support you. You're good at what you do, Will. But then it's one thing promising these sort of, or I wouldn't say promising, but suggesting they were going to support us. It's an entirely different thing when you then go and say, right, put your money where your mouth is. So it's a challenge, and we had, but we thought, no, we could do this. We just had to take a leap of faith. But that's like anyone in business. I think anyone and you're interviewing quite a few of them in this series. People who take a leap, they have to take. It's literally taking a leap.
Every single person says the same thing. Yes,
we've got to do it, and you just got to jump and do it.
Were you married at the time?
At that, we were. We were married during our PR days. Yeah, we got married during our PR days. So we
got a good splash on the local papers.
And one young child at that stage. But when we, which wasn't entirely, perhaps it could have been planned a little bit better. But anyway, we had one young child just when we were in the formative years of Business Eye. So tough enough, Tough enough, but no regrets. No, absolutely none. I mean, look, back then. We'd many a sleepless night where we'd both be thinking, oh God, we've got a magazine out now. How do we get paid? How do we? When does the money start coming in to pay for? And this is, But again, anybody in business will know that feeling. Doesn't matter whether they're in magazines or whether they're in, whatever they're doing. It's the same feeling. Oh my God, we need the money to come in, and how we're going to get through. Then things start to settle down, I think. And,
so how much lead time before the first publication hit the shelves? How much?
We left our previous employment at Christmas, really, of 1998, that would be. And then January 1999, we moved into an office in the Mount Business Centre in East Belfast, still there. And I remember sitting there, really looking at each other a bit the way we're doing now, going, right, here we do, we've got to do this. And we had a lead. We produced our first magazine in March, so we had a couple of months. Yeah, but then monthly from then on, so we had to just keep going. So it wasn't a lot of time. And we had to find printers. We had to find. Two of us initially. Yes, we didn't take on our first employee until 2 years into the business.
Oh my goodness! So were you relying on freelancers and
associates? Well, you're using printers, you're subcontracted printers, subcontracted designers, everything else. We just simply did the content. Subcontract photographers as well were brought in. Everyone else came in to help us in that way, but we did the selling. We did the content. It was quite a lot. Yeah.
And at what point did you start paying yourselves?
I suppose we started paying ourselves fairly quickly within a couple of months. Yeah, but it was because we had it structured and that we had to. We had no other means of keeping ourselves afloat. So, but the business took, once it was going for 5 or 6 months, as things started to look a little bit steadier. Yeah. It's just that initial period that keeps you awake at night.
But that's the thing. I mean, you've taken the risk, you're in it, and you just have to, knuckle down and get on with it. Yeah. Do you remember your first cover?
Oh yes, yes. And it was shorts. We did it back then. We called them shorts. Bombardier now. In those days, and the chief executive then was a guy called Ken Brundle, who was around business here and involved in CBI and so on for a number of years. And he was our first cover, and I remember it well. We still got a couple of them.
Yeah, very special.
Kept for posterity, So, really, I remember it well. I can picture it now while I'm talking to you.
And did you do the interview with him?
Oh yeah. I remember sitting in a boardroom, I think you would call it, in the main Shorts Bombardier site down at Airport Road, and talking to him there. And luckily, he was a very good interview subject, very knowledgeable, and very good at passing it on. Because I had to learn a bit of this. I'd done my Ulster business years, but I still had to keep. You keep learning with business. I'm a bit more comfortable now, 40 years down the line. Yeah. But some business people talked in a certain way that could go right over your head. No doubt about that back. So it was a bit of learning involved in that too.
This podcast is sponsored by Granite Legal Services, a niche business and immigration law practice located in the heart of Newry City. Granite Legal Services provides legal advice to both individuals and companies alike across a wide range of industries, from employment, commercial or corporate law matters to immigration law. Granite Legal Services focuses on providing legally sound, practical advice to its clients. To get in touch, visit www.granitelegalservices.co.uk or contact 028 3026 2200. And that's the thing as well. So many people have sat where you are today and they've got very successful businesses, but they never saw themselves as a business person. You were a journalist, and I would be a journalist, but I have my own business.
I come across that quite a lot, actually, talking to business people. When I'm interviewing business people, a lot of them seem to still labour under the misapprehension that they're not business people, that they're something else. And but there are some brilliant people, who you meet, but they just don't have any real. Sometimes don't have the faith in themselves. Maybe that's a Northern Ireland thing too.
I think it is.
We're a bit lacking in that front, aren't we?
The old imposter syndrome. Sometimes when we're competing, as soon as we mention growth or expanding into other markets, suddenly, we can suddenly feel inferior.
Oh, for sure. There's that. There's no doubt.
So Ken Brundle's on the front cover. Did you get a scoop out of him that day?
That's probably stretching it a bit too far, no. But I think we got bits and pieces about their plans and so on I'd like to think might have been, but looking back, probably not. If I'm going to be absolutely honest with that one, But then we're not really built on scoops. That's the one thing I would say. We're a monthly, and I've always said this. We do a bit of news stuff, but it's news in a more considered way. So obviously, if a big business story breaks today, we're not going to cover it probably for another couple of weeks in print, although, digitally it's a different ball game now. So that puts a different light on it. But back then, no, we didn't. The scoops would have been few and far between, but they did happen,
But even getting the scoop of getting him on the front cover was amazing. And that was such an amazing moment for you, I'm sure. And you see yourself
getting the magazine out was just fantastic.
There and maybe sitting next to... Ulster Business, etc.
Oh yeah, we did a little lunch, I remember, in a restaurant which is long gone in Great Victoria Street in Belfast, and we had all the magazines, and we had lots of people posing with, far too many people posing with copies of the magazine, but naively. We had loads and loads of photographs of people all standing the same way, and but we were so proud of it. So proud to get it out there,
And rightly so. And there you go. You see there the marketing kicks in, because at that stage you'd no social media. And it really was about, how did you tell people that this was out there? It's totally different now. I think people nowadays don't get that.
Completely instant now. They don't get we had no way of doing it. No, you're absolutely right. So we literally had to give people a free glass of wine and a bit of lunch, and hand them magazines and take photographs, and then do our own publicity. And
but you were well connected, and you'd all your journalists.
Well, we could do that.
Pals to say you wouldn't give us a mention here, there, and
that's
ever.
Right.
Great.
That's right.
All right, so what happened next then? Obviously, fast forward and we're sitting here now and 2022, and you are absolutely thriving, but not without challenges, I'm sure, along the way.
Oh, God, no. I mean, look, we have to develop the business, first of all. Back in those days, back in 1999, then into the noughties, I suppose it's called, that was developing, that was just building it up, and purely print only. But obviously what's changed in more recent years is it's built right. It's become a print stroke digital operation, and that has been the big change. The other one, I suppose, is events. We moved after 3 or 4 years into business awards. We thought it was a natural fit, and we launched the first Business Eye Awards, and they're now in their 16th year, coming up to their 16th year. So
and they're
that was a big step. I mean, because we didn't have a lot. I mean, we were both. Brenda was experienced in media. I was experienced in media. We didn't know a lot about organising Business Awards, but it seemed like the right fit. Other publications, media outlets did it. So we thought, right, we'll give this a go and we'll try it. I didn't think either of us thought it would last for this length of time, and we're now about to launch a second one, Family Business Awards, in May of this year. So that's kind of the other side of the business, if you like. Yeah.
I suppose, though, the last couple of years, events were hit, and when COVID struck, what was going through your head at that time?
Oh, look, I mean, COVID, I was thinking about this driving down. We've had a few challenges. We've been through economic downturns. We've been through the financial crash of a number of years ago. But the biggest challenge was probably COVID. I think it's the same. And again, I'm sure others will recognise this, that those early days, and I was listening to a lot of news about it on the radio today, but I mean, they're looking back on those lockdown days, but those initial days when Boris Johnson stood up and said, right, we're going to have to send you home, you stay at home, you can't go out, you can go out for a walk once a day, and, everything has to close down. I remember it was horrific, because we're thinking, well, we don't have a salary. We're not, we depend entirely on this business. What are we going to do? So that initial week or so was just horrific, and it was for everyone. And I had people coming, ringing me in tears, and just didn't know what was going to happen. But luckily, the government assistance kicked in fairly quickly, and we realised we were given a wee bit of a soft landing. But it was tough. And as you say, events just disappeared completely, and we only got the Business Eye Awards back last November, and even then, by the skin of our teeth, because the new variant came in shortly after that. So
that's right, and everything was closed again.
Yeah, that's it.
And how big a workforce do you have now, or how many did you have to manage?
We only have 3 full-time still, and other people will just, we've quite a team of subcontractors, if you like, in terms of print, particularly Paul Beattie, our designer, who doesn't work for us, works independently. So it's a slightly wider team in total, but only 3 of us full-time.
Right,
yeah.
so that
and all working from home. So we're now we've stayed working from home. We haven't gone back to for a small team like ourselves. We can do that.
Absolutely, and actually, it's probably that's perfect for you, and everything's digital.
Yeah. Yes.
So
I must say I like it now. I quite enjoy it now. At the start, I was a bit cynical. I thought, no, I need an office. I need to. And it's probably an age thing. I felt I needed this discipline. I don't think so now. No, it's less of a problem.
Everybody has changed. Do you think you've learned more about yourself during this time?
Yeah, I think so. I think we all have.
Yeah.
I think we all have. And, that's one of those things, just being based. If you said to me a few years back, you're going to be working from home, I said, no, absolutely not. There's no chance I will still be going out to an office and so on. So that's one thing. But I think we've all learned a lot about ourselves, haven't we? A lot in terms of resilience, particularly.
Oh, completely.
We've gone through it, and if you run a business through something like that, it's it stands you in good stead. Must do.
So how has it changed you? Do you think as a person going forward? Do you fear changes perhaps as much as you would have in the past?
No, not in terms of the wider business spectrum. Absolutely not, because it's hard to see how anything could be a lot worse than being told that everything was closed and we've just simply got to stay at home. But I think we've got to, I think what we probably failed to do a little bit is appreciate that. To appreciate being out in a restaurant, to appreciate we've really got to pinch ourselves sometimes and think what we've been through. So and really appreciate being out talking to people and being at business events. I've the next couple of days I have different events to go to, and I'm sure you're the same. So it's great to be out. It's great to be doing it.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? And
after
just
so
the
many
networking.
times sitting watching Netflix and drinking too much wine,
Yes, we all did that. And the COVID stone that appeared over that time. Yeah, and I think we've learned a lot. We know that we don't need to go to perhaps a place of work every single day, some of us. We also know that we need more downtime, but we had a taste of what it's like to be locked up, and now we're freer again, so we appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And are we kinder, more compassionate to others, do you think?
I'd love to think so. I'm not enterly sure.
When you look around the world at the minute.
Well, yeah, look around the world, but you don't think so. But even look at our local politicians. Are they being any nicer to each other? No, they're not. It's so I don't know. I'd love to think so. Maybe in terms of general public, yes, there maybe are, but I don't see a lot of evidence of it. I'd love to. It'd be nice to see that.
Yeah, that we learn some lessons going forward, be more compassionate as a society. So Talk a little bit more about the digital transformation side of things. I was speaking to somebody yesterday who was involved in the digital transformation of the Irish News, and it was a super presentation, just literally showing the old tobacco-stained newsroom, but the very real problem that people weren't buying newspapers and magazines anymore, and the do or die mentality around digital transformation. Many of the old journalists said, no way, I can't, my office stacked high with newspapers, mess, that's the way I work, that's what happens. How did you cope through all of that? What was it, difficult in terms of sales, and how did digital transformation help?
I think it was a challenge. Of course, it was a challenge. The first thing to say is I think magazines are a little bit behind newspapers. First of all, we don't sell. We mail out to 6,000 plus people on a monthly basis. That's the print version. So there's a subscription for some people. And we have a mailing list for key decision makers. That's how we look at it. So we're not people. You don't have to go into a news agency and pick it up, because that would be a challenge. Because I know I wouldn't buy too much now. I still buy newspapers, and that's probably that's a generational thing. My sons wouldn't. I would. But look, we had to change. When we would have had in the early days of websites, we had a website. Yeah, it didn't do a lot, but we had a website. It was there. So that has that's changed completely. I spend a fair bit of every day updating the website. It's a news source for people. I've got sources sending, PR companies and others sending material in, government press, whatever, and we'll put them up. We'll then use social media, obviously, and we've had to learn a lot about that. And again, for someone of my vintage, that's taken a bit of getting used to. We also do. I do a blog every Thursday, which has become very popular. We've got 28,000 subscribers on that. So we've embraced it, and I think we've done a fairly good job. Now, we've had help. We've brought in technical people where we've needed them, and I've had some very good advice and some very good assistance. And we've used our designer to keep us right on these things too. So we've had to work hard at it. It's been a learning curve, yes, but it's great. Now that we're doing it, I really enjoy it. I really enjoy having to do stuff every day and keep things up to date.
So, you've hinted at what you do, but what does a day in the life of Richard Buckley look like now?
Well, it depends. During lockdown, it was completely different. But at the moment, I'll spend a bit of time, usually each day, updating the website. That'll be the first thing I'll do, and social media channels. Keep an eye on that first of all. Ideally, I want to be out meeting a couple of people during the day now that we're back to some element of normality, and I'll have usually a busy week, a busy 2 weeks, and then a slightly less busy week where I can catch up on writing, because writing is things can pile up a little bit. I can talk to people, I can take a lot of notes, I can record things, and then I find it's all piled up, so I need to get moving on it. So those are the times. I quite enjoy that. I quite enjoy just having a period where I can write, get everything done, and walk a dog in between, that kind of routine, which works well.
And is writing your favourite part of the job?
Oh, yeah. Interviewing. I still love interviewing people, still love sitting, talking to interviewing people. So both of those,
so tell us
events and, being out meeting people's lovely, but, I still prefer just to interview and write. That's ideally, if I could do all that, I'd be quite happy.
It's a real privilege, isn't it, just to share a space with somebody and talk to them. So
absolutely.
Tell us a little bit of something about you that perhaps not would surprise people, that they wouldn't know. What do you like doing in your spare time? Spare time,
we have our kids are largely grown up, so that's less of a problem. So we've a little bit more time on our hands that way. I've got a border collie, so I spend a lot of time walking. He's very keen on walking. We live down by Sea Park in Hollywood, so got a chance to be able to do that. That aside, I'm a lapsed golfer. I don't play much now. I'm a big rugby fan, so we're season ticket holders at Ulster Rugby, and that would be a big thing for me. But no, aside from that, and a bit of socialising, nothing better than getting out for a little drink and a bite to eat somewhere. But that's about it. Bit boring, but it's what it is.
Sounds perfect to me. And how do you manage work-life balance? I mean, obviously you've started a business with your wife, Brenda. Talk to me. How does that work? Is it challenging? Or
a lot of people ask me. Yes. Ask me this question. Ask Brenda this question. Ask both of us this question. We've been doing it for so long, Sarah. I think that we did at the start. I suppose because we met in a business environment, and so we've been working with each other ever since, you know, and it's something we've just got used to now. It would be nice to say that we get to 6 o'clock in the evening and we don't mention business for the rest of the day, but it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. We end up talking about it. Sometimes we just don't. You know, sometimes things. You know, if there's nothing much to talk about, we'll talk about other things. But yeah, we do. We kind of live it, and but that's again. Some people might find that a terrible thought, but it's what we're used to. It's what we do.
And if she wasn't there by your side, or
I don't know. I couldn't. I wouldn't know what to do. I mean, it would be. We're a really strong partnership in every way. And
you see that when I saw you there recently at the Young Enterprise Awards, and you're very visible together. You are a duo, a really strong
it's
couple.
what we've always done, and it's it's a really strong partnership. So if Brenda wasn't there, I don't know what I wouldn't. I don't think the business would be the business. Certainly wouldn't be there. I don't think it'd be there without if either of us was missing. But so it's a very much of a partnership, and I think we've both got a passion for it still. Yeah, there are times when maybe you've got there's a couple of issues around the business, or you're worried about something. There are times when you think, oh God, I wish we were civil servants or something else, that we could have a paycheck coming. At least we used to think that. I don't think we think that now, but we enjoy it, but we still enjoy it. Yeah.
And you have very clear, defined rules?
Oh, yeah, clearly. I mean, Brenda would say if she was here, I would be saying about how much I still enjoy this. Brenda would say, well, she might beg to differ in that she handles all the finances. She'll do all the, spent. I came back in yesterday. She'd been wading through a whole pile of invoicing, and sometimes she looks at me as if you get all the easy stuff. Okay. I'm out meeting people.
The fun part.
I'm writing. I'm maybe out at an event and so on. I'm coming back in. She's wading her way through the financial stuff. So yeah. That's tough, but
so
again, it's the way it is, and she does the sales. So
and you need that. My goodness, two different.
But we can rely on each other. I mean, I rely on her to do that, and she does it, and then she relies on me to look after the look and feel and the content. And
she can't sell something that's not good, and she has to trust you.
Well,
to
hopefully,
do that.
Hopefully, that's the plan.
So do you get? Would you be? I mean, you go out and you meet people and everything, but would you have time apart at all? And would you socialise separately, or are you always together doing that too?
Oh, we tend to socialise together too, to be honest. But yes, they're tough. Obviously, she'll do. There'll be certain things that Brenda will do on her own, of course. Yeah, same for me. But no, we tend to do things together.
You have a really strong marriage.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
Well, you could give tips and.
Well, I don't know whether I could give tips or not. That might be stretching it, but yes, it's certainly a strong marriage. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And tell us about your two boys then.
Well, the older one is 30, and he Ruben works in fintech, I suppose you would say, in financial technology, which is one for the future. And he's currently working for KX, which is a branch of a company based in Newry, First Derivatives. Yeah. So he lives at the moment in Glasgow, where he's been for a number of years. Although he's thinking about perhaps moving back to this island, but we'll see. Younger one is in his final year at Ulster University in Coleraine, doing pharmaceutical bioscience. So he's literally coming up to his final exams over the next couple of months. So he'll be finished and then hopefully be off the payroll.
Well, that's
he says hopefully.
I'm in that situation myself too, and I can't wait. But so there you go. You've got two fabulous young men that you've raised, and they potentially will go into the world of business, if not journalism. They'll be doing something in businesses and industries that didn't even exist when you'd have been starting out. Isn't it incredible how the business landscape has changed?
I mean, fintech's a good example. It's a word we use now in business. We talk about fintech investment and so on. But going back a few years, none of us would have known what fintech was. So it's totally different. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And how would you describe Northern Ireland as a base for all of these companies, both indigenous and those coming from overseas to invest in? What is it that we have here that they love?
Well, they do. And I mean, I was with a company just last week who serve the private equity market. It's fascinating. They do back office work for private equity companies based in places like the Cayman Islands, Channel Islands as well, Caribbean. They're all around the world. And this guy just raved about how good this was. The people is the thing that keeps coming up. I mean, this guy, this managing director said, look, the people are absolutely brilliant. We seem to be adaptable. We seem to be able to do it. We really do seem to have the talent, and we're compared to other places, we're a low cost place to work as well. Not necessarily in terms of people, but in terms of the costs of doing business, locations. So at the moment we have, without getting controversial, we have certain advantages too, because we're between EU and UK, and that some people may not agree with, but business person after business person tells me that it's a major advantage. So we are a unique little place, yeah.
And you're telling these stories all the time in Business Eye as well, but what way do you see the world of work changing? Obviously, we've talked a lot about home working, remote working, hybrid working. We've got these city centres too that are sort of sitting there, and people are still working from home. What do you see as being the future?
Well, I think that presents challenges, but it's the way it's going to be. And I think at the start of COVID, I'd have railed against it, as I said. I'd have thought, oh no, I need to work in offices, and we all need to get back to offices. I've changed my mind on that. I think, it's driven by technology. We can work from wherever we want to work from now, and that's a big, big change. Now, city centre challenges, town centre challenges, I don't know, that is a challenge for them, and it's going to be difficult for them. That's something we need to think about. We need to change use of buildings, and we need to look at other ways of keeping town centres and city centres busy. But in terms of work, it's quite clear that that this works, so that businesses can work no matter where their people are, and that's phenomenal. It really is. It's a big. If you look at that as a positive,
exactly.
And I probably looked at it as a negative at the start,
yes.
which was wrong. Mm-hmm. So look at it as a positive. It's a game changer.
The world's your oyster. People can work anywhere, be anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my oldest son's a good example. He wants to move. And within this company, within the company that he works for, he doesn't have, all he has to do is be available to go into a meeting should he need to. He can fly to London, or he can go wherever he needs to go, but otherwise he can work from wherever he wants to work from. It makes no difference.
But I think that our generation perhaps worry about the younger ones because they can be working remotely. We had such great experiences, I suppose, when we started. You talked about the experience in more newspapers, learning from somebody sitting at their right-hand side and learning their trade.
Learning is the thing that worries me. I don't, I learned from people I sat beside, absolutely. And that would worry me a bit. I don't.
Or the socialising.
And I've talked to some big accountancy firms and law firms and all about this, and they have similar concerns that they were bringing in young people during COVID who were sitting in back rooms, literally sleeping in a back room, getting up, working in a back room, going back to sleep in a back room during the, and this I don't, how do you learn? So that is a problem, But
how do you learn, and also for your mental health?
This will evolve. Yeah, it's okay if you've got, if you're on a decent salary and you're living beside the sea or whatever, and but if you're in a back bedroom in the Holy Lands in Belfast or something, it's not so good.
No, it's not, and so
it's something we need to think about. We need to think about that, absolutely.
So you've hinted and explained all about Business Eye, the subscription model, etc. The awards are back. In fact, you're doing more awards now, so the Family Business Awards too. What's next?
Well, I think we don't have any ambitious plans to launch new magazines or anything like that. What we will do is we're going to keep on developing the digital side. That's very important, and there's more we can be doing in that. There's always improvements to be made in digital. There's always opportunities in digital, so that would be the priority. Awards, you never know. Yeah, if we could get maybe a set of 3 awards through a year, we would certainly do it. So we'd look at other awards. It's been a good business model for us, and it's worked very, very well. Print will stay with us. Magazines are a bit behind newspapers. We do appreciate that people don't consume print the way they used to. We have to be realistic about that. But people still, we talked about the Ken Brundle front cover all those years ago. People still love to be on our front cover. I could go out and see a business and put them on Twitter or whatever. That's fine. But see, when you put them on your front cover, they send it to their mother, they send it to their whole family, they have it in the reception area. It's still a big thing for them. So we got a bit of lifespan yet.
Absolutely. Now, Richard, it has been a joy talking to you so far, but I ask this question of all of my guests. The purpose of this podcast is to inspire existing business owners and ambitious entrepreneurs to grow their business by offering insight into the success of businesses such as Business Eye. But what advice would you give to people who may have a business idea but have no idea where to begin or are unsure as to whether the risk is worth taking?
The first thing I'd tell them, I'd suggest that they do is talk to business people, talk to people. There's bound to be someone they know or someone else knows that has done this. Doesn't really matter what the business is, even if it's not relevant to what they're thinking about. Talk to people who actually do it. And, you know, yes, you can talk to local authorities, you're going to talk to Invest NI and so on once you get a little bit further down the track. Don't start with that. Start by talking to people who actually live and breathe businesses, and they're the best people to give you advice without any shadow of doubt.
Richard Buckley, thank you so much for joining me today, and if you've enjoyed this one, then join me for another fantastic episode of the Public Eye Podcast very soon. This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service for our team, using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.